Hello, we're going to start in a few minutes here. Okay, is everyone ready? All right. Good evening. My name is Caleb Spielman, if you haven't met me already. I'm the CAD lead for the robotics team, and today we're going to learn about the principles of CAD. It'll essentially be an introduction to the fundamental aspects of CAD. So here's a basic overview of the introduction I'm going to give. We'll be going over sketching, defining, evaluating, extruding, and cutting using sketching tools, feature tools, and surface tools. If you're unfamiliar with those terms, that's definitely not a problem because they're actually very unique to CAD. So I'll be providing definitions and demonstrations to help explain these concepts. And then after I've explained definitions and demonstrated what they are, we'll be registering for Onshape and continue with a guided practice. So the first thing, naturally, we're going to go over are features and tools. So sketching, it's quite simple. Essentially first to define a sketch. A sketch is a two-dimensional feature defined on a plane about an origin consisting of geometric shapes, such as line tools, just lines, arcs, splines, rectangles, squares, anything you can really think of. They will form contours constructed using sketching tools, such as the tools for the attributed shapes that I just stated. I'm going to show you here and explain a few things. So this is SolidWorks. I will also be going over this with Onshape later. Essentially, I'll be creating a sketch, and there are already several defined planes along several axes, like the X, Y, and Z axes. So here, I've just clicked on the plane, and now it gives an origin. This origin is just the origin of the part. That's all.
Oh,
And then,
okay. We always see is your PowerPoint. Or if you're doing something on CAD, we're not seeing it.
okay, give me 1 second. I'll share a screen instead. Do you see now? Okay. So to explain again, so here, this is SolidWorks. This may all seem very overwhelming to you, but don't worry. You'll learn with time. You'll get used to it. Right now, just focus on what I'm doing here in the center of the screen. So there are several planes in a part. I'm just going to highlight these. They're defined by the X, Z, and the Y axis. So if I click in the upper left here, I can select the sketch tool. I can click on a plane and start applying, constructing contours using sketch entities. This line is just a sketch entity. This arc is just a sketch entity. It's essentially its own entity. That's really it. So here now, you can see in blue, whatever it defines, well, it'll show whatever our contour is as blue. And I can then use features on this. And that is just what the sketch is. 2D plane with geometric shapes. Okay, yes, and tools we'll go over later. There are several ones unique to Onshape and SolidWorks. Defining is another very important aspect of sketching and CADing in general. First, a dimension is just a measurement used to define a sketch entity using numerical values. I'll show you here. So here in this sketch, really the only relations we have is that this point is coincident with this point, and then a few other points are coinciding with others. So to define the sketch, there's a tool up here in the top left called a smart dimension. There are other dimensions, but you don't really have to worry about those at the moment. So I can define the length of this line. Let's go 1 centimeter. I can define this distance. I can do many things with the smart dimension. It's not defined yet, however. This line has merely just been assigned a magnitude and not the direction. And that's when relations come in. Sorry. A relation is just a condition between sketch entities, such as vertical, horizontal, perpendicular, parallel, collinear, and tangent. These terms, you'll become familiar with them as you use them and experiment with CAD. So here, I can pick this point, and pressing Shift, I can select another point. And then in the left menu here, I have several optional relations. Merge is actually going to result in an error because I've already assigned a magnitude to this line. So I'm not going to do that. I will instead do horizontal. So you can see now, this line has been defined. So now it's black instead of blue. Blue I can drag across the screen. I can edit pretty much anything about them. This line here, I cannot move, but I can redefine it, of course. But it now has a magnitude and direction. So that's the important distinction between defined sketches and not defined sketches. So next is evaluating, which is really just measuring. It's just a method of obtaining measurements. Generally, it will give either a change in the x-axis, y, or z, a normal distance, or a maximum or minimum distance between selected entities or model. This can be two-dimensional or three-dimensional. I can show you here. We'll be seeing a lot of this model throughout the course. It includes all of the tools that are necessary for being successful in CAD, and I will show all of you how to use them. But that's not our focus right now. So in SolidWorks, there's an Evaluate tab, or if you just can't find it, you can click in any command you want. For some reason, it has the PowerShell icon. So we're going to evaluate, we're going to measure. Now we're going to click a few sketch entities. So I can click this line or this line, and it will give me an angle in degrees. Or I can click this point, and it will actually give me a visual representation of the distances between them. So here we have just a distance, just the minimum distance. It's just, then we have change in Z, change in X, and there is no change in Y because this is a two-dimensional sketch. It is just 0. Now to show you this in Onshape, there's that same model we saw a few seconds ago. in SolidWorks. So I'm going to create a new document. Onshape and SolidWorks are similar, at least regarding like the very simple aspects. Basic things, starting a sketch, we're again going to choose a plane. I'll just choose top plane for now. I cannot see the view cube. There we go. Let me move that back. Okay. Now we're just going to make a quick sketch. And then we're going to evaluate. So evaluating an Onshape is a bit strange. So basically you'll just click two entities. It could be pretty much any entity, as long as it can actually compute values between them. So I'll pick this point and this point. Of course, I'll show you how to do this specifically later when you are able to use Onshape after we register for it. I can, in the bottom right here, is a measuring icon, and I can see the values that it gives me. So it's very similar to SolidWorks. There are just a few different places where the tools are. That's all. And in Onshape, it still has that black versus blue thing. Like this sketch is not defined, while this sketch completely is. So this is blue, black, black. Ignore the blue. That's just a measurement. So sorry. Undefined and defined are the same things in Onshape and SolidWorks. Then there's extruding. It's pretty simple. A boss/base, which is really just an extrusion, is just an extruded contour derived from a sketch, those 2D contours on planes we saw earlier. Or a face does not have to be on a defined plane as a feature, forming a solid feature, such as this. And I'll show you how to do that. So in SolidWorks, after you have your 2D sketch, we have the feature tab right here, and there are many options, but we're going to choose the basic one, which is just extruded boss/base. So we can choose this, and we can begin defining elements of the contour. This is just a single contour, so we don't have to select any. We could, but we'll do it automatically as well. And there, of course, are different options for extrusions. We'll just be using blind for now. It's just the most basic, but you can experiment with others later. We can check that. And now we have a solid body. Defined from that 2D sketch, we have just made a volume. Very cool. Now I will show you another solid feature. So here in this same sketch, we can use another boss/base tool, which is the Revolve. We can use this contour and essentially rotate it 60 degrees around an axis. So I'm going to choose an axis. So this contour, I've just chosen this contour automatically. You can select it if you want. You can select individual ones if you want. And we're going to do 270 degrees. So now we have just created a volume using the Revolve tool. It's generally the Revolve tool is very, sometimes it disobeys. It's not always consistent with how you can do it and when. So you just have to manipulate the sketch to do it as you want. For example, watch this. I'm going to make this a construction. This contour is now open. Actually, hold on. They might have updated this. Let me see. Oh, yes, they did. Okay, very good. Never mind for construction geometry. In that case, a quick thing about construction geometry. Ignore the yellow part. So here in this sketch, I have solid lines, and I also have a dashed line. And here is another dashed line. So construction lines are defined as either A, relation lines. For example, if I wanted to define these two lines, or really just this line, with this line instead of others, I could do that. Really, it's just a construction choice. But what's useful about construction lines is that certain features don't recognize them. For example, I am going to do this, delete that, and I'm now going to extrude. So now I have to select a contour, and you can see here, it's not recognizing the construction line. It's not recognizing that these are two contours because the line between them is not solid. So in Onshape again, it's very similar, but a lot of the tools are embedded within a single tool. So here, the extrude feature, it looks pretty much the same as the one in SolidWorks, but now we have more options, somewhat confusing options. So do we want to do a surface or a solid? We'll have to decide that. Right now, we want to do new. Then it selects, this time it selected a contour automatically. So let's just select it again, and we can define it as a blind extrusion just in a specific direction, defined by a magnitude, in this case, 25 millimeters. And we can click check on that. For Onshape, if you ever press the red X, all of your work is gone, never to be seen again. And yeah, so the extrusion tools between Onshape and SolidWorks are very similar. And of course, the Revolve tool is as well. I'll show you here. Here's the Revolve tool. It's already selected the contour, so now we just need to select an axis. Check. And now we have something resembling a cone, although it's not the cone, not exactly. So those are basic solid bodies, basic solid body features in SolidWorks and Onshape to create volumes. You'll be using that a lot, of course. Sorry, Onshape is very disorienting. There we go. So that's extruding. Now we're going on to cutting. A cut is basically just an extruded contour derived from a sketch, but instead of adding to a feature, it removes it with using an intersecting feature or a Boolean feature. But you don't really need to know that. So here we have our solid body, our volume. I am now going to make a sketch on this plane. So here is this plane. My view is now normal to it. I'm going to define, let's say, a circle just in the middle of it. I'll just give it a diameter. Oh no, I do not want to make a variable. Okay, there we go. So now we have a circle contour on the very top of this body. And now in SolidWorks, the extrude features and cut features are distinct and separate. They're still called extrudes, but I'll show you the nuance in Onshape in a second. So it's essentially the same as a boss extrude, but it's just taking away pieces. So here we can click check. And now we have a cut. Oh my goodness. Okay, so let's continue this process, but in Onshape. So here we have an extrusion. Now we don't. What happened? Oh, there we go. Okay, here we have an extrusion. I'm now going to make another sketch. You can see that I just made the plane on that face that's already been made. I'm just going to make one sketch entity. And now, in this case, we click extrude again, same sort of feature, but this time instead of clicking new or add, we're going to click remove. So now it's going to remove volumes instead of adding them. We're just going to click check. And here we have a hole in the middle of our part. Okay, so now we're going to get started with actually putting some of these tools and features into practice. So we're all going to register for Onshape. I can show you how to do that. So essentially, this is just intended for people who did not attend the meeting. But if you look at my screen, you can see here, we are going to type in cad.onshape.com. We'll give everyone a moment to open the browser.
So you want everybody to do this right now, Caleb?
Yes, please. All right. I'm gonna assume that everyone can open Chrome. So here you'll be introduced to a window, just this Onshape email password. At least I hope so. Down in the bottom right, you're going to click sign up, and you'll continue with just the Onshape education plan. Any other plan will usually make you pay money. Do you have a question, Matt? What was that?
All right, then you pick the educational one. The other ones are very pricey.
Oh yeah, it's very expensive. It's like $1,400 for an individual plan, and then
Yeah,
almost beyond like 10,000 for the company plan. It's
right. So
ridiculous.
then on the SolidWorks side, I have some old licenses from previous years. So once we're ready to get everybody rolled out on SolidWorks, we can get them for the older version, and then I will get new licenses here this probably in December for if they upgraded to get to new educational first endorsed licenses for SolidWorks. So we'll get that out to everybody.
Yes, that's very good. And you don't really have to worry about the old or new distinctions between versions. Most of the features are still the same, so you don't have to worry about the basics and stuff like that. So just continue registering for Onshape. You'll have to verify it, verify your account with an email, and make sure that you choose the education account. If it asks for your debit card or credit card, do not put it in. I'll give everyone a few minutes to do that.
And while we're waiting, if anybody wants to send me their email in Slack, I will then send out the latest keys that I have for SolidWorks. So if you want to start getting involved in SolidWorks, send me your email address in Slack, and I will send you a key or how to get a key.
How is everyone doing on registering for Onshape?
I just verified my email. I'm signing in now.
Okay, thank you. One more minute. Give everyone a chance to register.
How many like decimal places should we put for our thing? It says set your default units.
You can use whatever units you want personally, but for robotics teamwork, most people use the imperial system. I don't care what units you use, but
Okay.
the build team might, because all of our machines are imperial. But
Okay, got
Yeah,
it.
we need to stick to
But-
that for when we're making prints.
yes,
But okay,
regarding
after that it says the length of the decimal places. How specific do you want it to be?
regarding precision, it's your preference. Usually to the thousands is fine. It's thousands, yeah.
Okay, okay.
3.
All right, is anyone not registered for Onshape? All right, very cool. Okay, so after you've signed in, you'll be greeted with this window. You don't actually have to save any files. They're auto-saved onto the cloud. Who knows where? Some PDM somewhere. So here in the top left, ignore the try professional thing. They're everywhere. We're going to click create, and you have several options to choose from, but we're going to click a document. You can name it whatever you want. I'm just going to go with this. So here we now have our document, and we are now in a screen with 3 planes and 3 axes. I won't talk about studios just yet, because they're currently irrelevant. So let's begin by making a sketch, since that is all we can do, because we only have 3 planes and an origin. So here, I'm just going to click the top plane. And sometimes I can't see it right now because the videos are in the way, but there's a view cube right here that you can use to put normal to top, right, front, whatever, isometric, just about anything. There are hotkeys for it, but I won't discuss those right now. So let's begin by defining a rectangle. So what I just did there is in the top left, I chose this here, so center point rectangle, or I can do corner. This is the drop-down menu for those 2 options, by the way. So here, center rectangle. So now that we have this, we don't want to leave it blue. Blue is bad. And I don't know what I just did there. Okay. So we're going to begin by dimensioning this entity right here. Go with a centimeter. And as you can see, 2 of the lines are blue because they are now defined. But these other 2 are not. You could use another dimension but the relations exist. So here are several conditions up here. So we have a coincident, concentric, it's concentric, I have trouble speaking, parallel, tangent, horizontal, vertical, perpendicular, equal, midpoint, normal. The rest of these are not important. So here we're going to click equal. It will just make the magnitudes of these two lines identical. You can see there, I selected this turned blue, and now I have a crosshair. I can select two entities, or I also could have done this. I selected this one and this one just by left clicking and selected equal. So now we have a defined cube, sorry, not cube, just square. So now we are going to make a volume. So you could just press check mark to save your work, just in case. I'm going to then right click this sketch, right click, and then go down to edit. If you ever somehow get booted out of a sketch. So here now, to make a volume, solid body, we're going to click extrude. And if your settings are whack, that's okay. We're going to be using solid, new, and then the sketch contour is just been automatically determined. You can make it whatever you want. I don't care. We can do symmetric, which will make it 5 millimeters or up or 5 millimeters down, or I suppose like whatever dimension you want. It's just this value x divided by 2 in both directions. So now that we have a volume, we are going to continue editing it. So you may be really annoyed by these planes. They won't auto size. So you'll have to drag them down yourself. So I'm just going to do that now. All you have to do is just click on the plane, click on a dot, and just drag it. Can zoom back in. It looks very bad, but that's just how Onshape is sometimes. So now we're going to make a new sketch. We're going to make this sketch on the top face. You could also do it on the top plane or the mid plane between these two faces, but we're not going to do that right now. We're just going to do a blind cut extrude. Remember, so here, oh shoot, I need the sketch. There we go. Here, I'm just going to take a circle, and you can see right there what they just did is it just auto-defined that point. It took, it viewed it as vertical to the origin, or just the z-axis, coinciding with the z-axis, and on this face, on this plane. But we have not defined the diameter or the radius, so we're going to make this. Where is it? There it is. We're just going to make this 5 millimeters. Oops, that was a command. Okay, there we go. Now we have a 5 millimeter diameter circle. So now it's not highlighted in blue, but that's okay. It's still a contour. There we go. Okay. So now we'll click the extrude feature again, but this time we're going to click remove instead of new or add. So we're going to remove volume. So here you can see this this extrude extends far beyond than what we want it to. Let's say we have a part down here that we don't want this hole to touch. Let's say we're putting a bolt that is tangent to this face, but it does not go through this face. So we are going to go to the options here. This is called an end type option. And we are just going to click up the face. So you can see that highlight just disappeared. That's because now we have something to define. So I'm going to define this face right here. You could also click a plane. So now there's just a hole in the middle of the cube. But we're just going to do this. So now we have our cube and our hole. And I'm going to show you something that I did not discuss before, but that was on purpose because they're unique. They're just hanging out. Okay, so here, these tools right here. So up here in the top left, I'm very sorry if it's very hard to see my mouse and identify where it is. We have a fillet and a chamfer. An important distinction between the fillet and the chamfer. The chamfer, it forms a straight edge or just another face as a plane. The fillet rounds an edge. So let's test these out. I'm going to choose here and here. So now we have a fillet with a circular cross section defined on these two edges. So we have the entities to fillet. I'm going to click this edge and this edge. I'm going to check that. And now these corners are rounded. Chamfer, I'll show you what that is. It's very similar, but instead of making it circular, it's just an edge face. So here, I just clicked those two edges. You can see here, entities of the chamfer, and I clicked that. Very easy. And since I now just want to look at it and not at the planes, I'm going to go to the top left. There are little eyes here on the right of each entity. So here we have hide, hide, hide. Again, that's in the left. You can also do this with features. Like for example, if I want to see this sketch, like for example, this sketch is showing for some reason. So now it's just this volume and no other of its attributes. Okay. We're going to continue with some other parts similar to this, but not exactly. So in the bottom left here, there's this plus. You can insert a new element, but in this case, we're going to make a studio. Again, bottom left, click the plus, and we're going to create a part studio. Okay, so now we have a new part studio. You'll notice, oh hey, where did the other document go? It's still here, don't worry. In the very bottom, there are several studios. Don't worry about the assembly one. They are very annoying. So here we have two part studios. The first one is of course our first part, and we just made a new one. So now we're going to make another part, but first we have to make a sketch. So I'm going to choose the right plane this time. I'm going to go to the right view option on the view cube, which is in the top right. I'm just going to spaz my mouse around so everyone can see that. It's very easy to miss. So here's the right plane. Now I'm going to make a line that is not yet on the origin. So here's my line. It's not defined yet. So I'm going to go to the Relations tab right here. I'm going to click Midpoint. I'm going to click on this line. See, I just selected that line and the origin. What it just did is it just bisected this line. So essentially, this line is the midpoint. Sorry, this point is the midpoint of that line. I can move it, and these are symmetrical. So now that I've done that, I'm going to take an arc. I'm going to use a 3-point arc right now. You can see you can access that from the drop-down menu. There we go. I'm going to click this point and this point, and now I can drag the curve to where I want it to be. I'm going to place it just here for now. So now we have our curve. It's coincident with these 2 points, but it can still float around, which is not good. So what we're going to do is we are going to go to the relations. We're going to click coincident. So here, it will essentially make this point on top of this point. So here I can click both points, and now the only thing that can be dragged is the line length, which of course modifies the arc, but that's not important right now. So now we're going to define the sketch. We're going to choose the dimension tab, which is up here where my mouse is. So here, we're going to click this line, 25 millimeters. Okay. So now we have our contour, but this is a very boring contour right now. Okay, it's just a semicircle. So what I'm going to do is I am going to add something. I'm going to take this line, and it's going to take a walk over here. So it's already defined it as horizontal automatically, which is sometimes nice, sometimes very annoying. So here I have my new line, but what I'm thinking about doing is not using it in a feature. So I'm going to click on it. I can either go to the settings here and click construction, or I can alternate between solid and construction by tapping on it and then pressing Q. You can see there. So when we use a feature on the sketch, it will not use this, which is good because I don't want that right now. We're going to take this shape here. So this is an inscribed polygon. I'll show you how to use it later. So I'm just going to click that and then drag it like this. And now I can drag my mouse up and down to define how many sides it has. I'm going to choose, come on, 6, there we go. So now we have a 6-sided polygon, just a hexagon, that's all. Here, it is of course not defined, so let's begin by defining it. I want this polygon to be attached to this contour. But in order to do that, I need to make this point and this arc coincident. So I'm going to do that. Coincident. And these by definition is coincident, but just in case, I made it coincident anyway. Okay, so now I'm going to make this a construction line because I want this to be just one single contour. How do I separate this line, you may ask? I can't delete it, that deletes the whole thing. Well, if you watch this, up here at the top, this little scissor thing, if you click the drop down, there are several options. Everything comes with directions, by the way, if you hover over it. We're going to choose split. So here, drop down menu, split. I'm just going to select this curve and click any point. If I could actually do that, please. Where'd it go? There we go. Okay, so now you can see, if I hover over this arc, it is now separated at that point. Here's one arc, here's another arc. So I have 2 now. Now I can drag this point along the arc, and now I'm going to drag it over here, and it will auto coincide to that point. Don't want that. Okay, in this case, I'm going to have to manually do it. Where'd it go? What? Okay, it just disappeared for some reason. Okay, where is it? Okay, so I have my new point now. I'm going to take the coinciding tool. Again, all of the relations and conditions are up here. Tap this point, tap that point, and now I have a single arc here between, so I can close these contours, make them one single contour. So I'm going to click that. It is now construction geometry. So I now have this arc defined, but not this hexagon. So I'm just going to define this hexagon by taking this, and let's make it 1 centimeter inscribed. So I've got only 2 dimensions, but I've just defined the entire sketch through relations. It's extremely useful, especially if you want to be editing dimensions. Easy, very easy. Let's go back to 10 and 25. Okay. So now that we have this, these 2 contours, now 1 contour, we are going to revolve it. So we'll click the Revolve tool. It's already picked the single contour that we have now because we used construction geometry. And I'm now going to pick this axis to revolve around, okay? So now we have this very strange looking object. Could be from another planet, I don't know. Okay. So now we have used the Revolve tool and used construction geometry. But I want to add more to this part. I want to add another extrusion. So I'm going to click Sketch again, top plane again, and the View Cube, top again. And now I'm going to use, let's see, I'm going to choose this. I'm going to choose a circle. Let's make it 10 millimeters. Okay, there we go. Okay, now there's a sketch in the middle of the body. That is okay. You can still make volumes out of it. It won't come up with an error. So now we're going to choose the Extrude feature again. So here, this volume is going through this other volume, which is fine. So right now it's blind, but I'm going to choose symmetric, and we're going to make it 50 millimeters. So we now have an extrusion inside of an extrusion. So an important distinction between different extrusions on different contours. So these features, I don't know if they're features really. So we have new, add, remove, and intersect. Intersect is just a Boolean operation. New, it creates a new solid body, which OnShape defines as a part. Add, it just adds to this existing part. New, now it's 2 separate parts. Add, now it's just 1 part with another extrusion. So now we have this extrusion inside of an extrusion. And we're going to continue developing this. So I am going to chamfer this here. So you can see here, all I did was I clicked the chamfer tool right here, right under the document name. And I just clicked this edge. By clicking this edge, I can now define dimensions of it. It could be 2 distances. It could be a distance and an angle. Like for example, it could be, oops. It could be 30 degrees. But we're just going to choose equal. Equal distance 5 millimeters. This is now a very sharp point. Very cool. Okay, so let's continue developing this part. But now we're going to do something a little bit different. Well, not really, I suppose. Let's see. So we're going to take a sketch on the front plane now. We're going to use the front plane. Let's take a corner rectangle. Okay. Just a quick unfortunate thing about Onshape, it doesn't do silhouette sketching. Essentially what that is it's not defining things in other sketches or 3D models as usable for relations. You can get around this, but it often takes longer. So we now have this. You can see here, it is not auto mating to that part. So let's test. Can we do this? Point, base? Yes, we can. Very good. Okay. Let's go back to front view. So now we have this point is defined. It is vertical to this origin. Also deleting relations, by the way. Let's say we had no idea where that relation was, or what it was, how this was defined. We can hover over that entity, and we can see here, this is a vertical relation. So we have vertical relation. If I did not want that, I could delete it, and it's now no longer there. But, oops, I just muted myself. Okay, it is still defined, which is good. Okay, let's continue by defining this with dimensions. Okay, this here, 2.5 millimeters. Also, if you're using any other unit system besides the one that's default, whatever the default one for you might be, depending on preferences. So you can just do 2.5 and then millimeters, centimeters, inches, feet. They're just very basic defining letters for units, different units, that's all. So here I'm just going to choose 2.5 millimeters, sorry. So here, now I have that 2.5 millimeter part. See here, now this is the only thing that's not defined at the moment, but is going to be defined very soon. So we are going to take the tangent tool. Let's hope this works. I'm going to select this edge and this line. But of course, did not work because these are not in the same plane. So instead, I'll try this and that. You can see the sketch could not be solved. The reason for this is because I selected an entity that's not within the bounds of this line. What you'll often come across is a lot of errors when you first start out. That is perfectly normal. Just press Control Z or continue doing it wrong and figure out why it's going wrong. So here, I am just going to do this. I'm lazy and I don't want to find a correct relation, so I'm just going to make this 20 millimeters radius. Now we're going to use the Extrude feature. So we now have an extrusion on this part. We are currently adding. 90% of the time, you're going to be using solid and adding. So here, let's make this 5 millimeters. Actually, let's make it 10 millimeters because we are now going to make this symmetric. And now we have this random handle on whatever this is. So now I'm going to introduce you guys to what's called a circular pattern. I might have to find an axis somewhere, but I'll show you how to do that. So the pattern tools are right below these links, these two links. So here, circular pattern, it does what it says. It repeats a body or entity in a circle. And I'll show you why, but I should not have chosen add here, the common mistake people make, but I'll show you how to fix that. So I don't have an axis here. I don't see an axis. Do you see an axis? No. Okay. So this sketch, this first sketch that I used, actually does have an axis. So what I just did there is I went to the left, I went to the eye thing, and I can now show the sketch. And I can actually select this for a circular pattern. So circular pattern, we're gonna do this. You'll see why that won't work in a second. So here, an entity, look here. So part one, it actually did it this time, but what will often happen is it will instead copy the entire part. So nothing changes, or you get an error. This time, we're going to have six parts. So now we have 6 parts. They are very clearly not part of that model. That is because it recognized the fact that I only wanted to copy this, and so it's separated. You can see here in the bottom left, I now have this single part. If I hide this, if I hide that, and I just click that again, you can see, there it is. There's that part. This is sometimes useful if you want like configurations of different parts. Like let's say I wanted a configuration where I just had 2 of these. 1, 2, 2. There we go. See? 2. And I'm not going to go over the configurations tab. So now we have this circular sketch. I'm just going to show you this real quick. So here, if I place this in to an assembly studio, you don't have to follow this. In fact, I wouldn't recommend it. They'll just get really confused. This actually happens. This really weird phenomenon. You'll notice these do not look the same, and it makes me very angry. So it's instead made entirely separate parts, which is not what we want. Not at all. I do not want a multitude of these just sitting around in studio. Okay, so what we're going to do is called a Boolean operation. This doesn't work sometimes. I don't know why, but hopefully it'll work here. So I'm going to select this top part. I'm going to either just click all of them individually, or if there's like hundreds of them, which I sometimes end up with, I'll just click the top one, hold down Shift, and tap the bottom one. Now it's selected all of those. Now that all of these are highlighted, I'm going to right click, and I am going to click Boolean. Okay, now we can see we have Boolean 1. There are several options. We can subtract bodies. We can make them into 1, or we can just intersect. If I intersect here, it'll just mess everything up. So here, I'm just going to do a union. I just did a union. I just checked that box. You can see now, all of this is now one part. See here? Watch, I'll prove it to you. See? Same part. These parts are now gone. So it now has no idea what to do with them. So now they're gone. And now we have just this part. Very good. Okay. Let's continue going over construction geometry, because that is a confusing yet very important part of CAD. So we're going to go back to this model. Okay. We are going to start a sketch on a face, and I'm going to choose this face. Notice how I can't select this curve because it is a curve. That's all. It's a curve, not the face. It could really not. Let's see.
Caleb, are you going to have the people on try and do some stuff and show you how they do it, or what? Are you just going to keep demonstrating?
If they're comfortable with doing that, I would like that. I'm not expecting them to. That's how I would normally do it in a classroom setting. But sharing screen works too, especially if they need help. I know that in Zoom, it can be daunting to ask questions sometimes.
Maybe we just have them, play with it and then come back with questions and give them some assignments. I don't know how you have this structured, but at some point they need to do it and then learn from that. That's how you got really good at this, is just doing it. So
Yep.
I'll just throw that out there, and I'll let you figure out how you want to attack that.
Yep. Okay. So with that consideration in mind, who is actually comfortable sharing their screen and letting me watch them CAD and answering any of their questions?
And guys, if you're not ready tonight, play around with it. But in future training, we should expect that you guys walk through how you're doing it, and then have Caleb mentor you and show you how to do it.
Mm-hmm. And do not worry if you have no idea what you're doing, because originally I had no idea what I was doing, and I broke the software. It crashed many times on me, as it does. We are all in a learning environment, and CAD can be complex. All
Caleb,
right.
how is Onshape for YouTube videos and training? I know that SolidWorks is really good at that. How's Onshape?
For resources for learning about how to use Onshape, there really aren't many YouTube videos. There are some, but they're very basic tutorial, like this is how you make a line, this is how you make a curve. Or they're extremely complex, like this is how we code a feature script. So now we can make this model just by using a value. There's no in between, really. So
Okay.
that's unfortunate.
For those that are still on, any questions for Caleb? Things you saw him do that you like him to try and do it again, or where are you guys?
I think I might have to rewatch this later and get better at it, I guess, and practice more, but
That's good.
Yep.
yeah, so
Yeah, the best to do is just to do it. Just try it.
yeah, exactly. And where would you be posting this video? Will you send out something on Slack or something?
I actually forgot to record this video. Do you? So you have
It
the
looks
recording?
like it's recording. I see a
You're recording now.
Okay. Very cool. Excellent. All right.
So let's put that out on Slack. Once whoever's recording it figures that out, let's get that out on Slack.
Mm-hmm. I'll also provide the actual PowerPoint presentation for context.
Sure. Okay. Good.
Even though it's included in the recording.
And then I got one request for SolidWorks. If people want SolidWorks, let me know. I'm on Matt Thomas on Slack, Mentor Matt. So I'll get you SolidWorks, and then I'm sure Caleb's going to get into SolidWorks at some point. But I know he wants to try and roll Onshape out this year because it's so flexible. easy to use remotely. It has its challenges when we try and put it back into SolidWorks, but it's a great tool for other people to use that aren't super CADers.
I agree. So Onshape and the team, it's very useful. Onshape is very easy to use, but if you plan on joining the CAD team and essentially sort of, I say this word, but dedicate yourself to CAD, it's very useful to know how to use both tools. SolidWorks, there are many other complex features for very complex shapes. For example, I'll actually show one here. Let's see. So here is a SolidWorks part that I made for fun. This is a mask. Doing this in Onshape would be virtually impossible. So this is just an example of what you can do in SolidWorks. Onshape, good luck doing this. You will, the software will not like you doing this.
Yeah, and SolidWorks is much more utilized out in industry. Onshape is getting traction and getting out there, but it's more on the, I think, conceptual, creative side to get things out there for people. But then when people are actually trying to make something, they usually are doing it in SolidWorks or other high-end CAD software. So as Caleb indicated, this is great for people to create some simple mechanisms and how things work. But ultimately, we're going to want to put those into SolidWorks and get them on our robot in a higher end software tool.
Yes.
So.
Also, a quick thing about Onshape. Unfortunately, last year, no one used Onshape. The only person that I actually saw use it was Ben, Matt's son. Very proud of him for doing that. I created a team folder and an individual folder and no documents. Very sad folders.
Yeah, so I've sat in on some first Midwest mentor meetings, and there are a lot of teams that are really picking up on Onshape because it's very easy for beginners to use and try. So I encourage you guys to get in there and try it out. And then if you want to become that super CADer, then we'll also do some SolidWorks training and make sure you've got both tools. So, but it is a very powerful tool, and you can use it on almost any device. Not any device, but pretty simple devices. So, so I think you guys should explore that. I'm glad you guys are signed up tonight and sitting in on this. So I'm going to need to drop off here in a few minutes, but you guys can keep going. But Caleb, excellent job tonight showing you the powerful tools that we have on our team and how they can help us. And I think the next step is for these guys to go out and just play around with it and figure out what they don't know, and then come back with some questions. And then hopefully you've got some things you want them to try to make in future CAD meetings that then we can assist with that. So I'm going to drop off here, guys. You guys keep going if you need to. But again, Mentor Matt on Slack if you need anything or you want the SolidWorks.
Yep. If you're interested in joining the CAD team, make sure that you email Matt your email. I'm sorry, Slack Matt your email.
Yep. Slack Matt.
It's good to get the SolidWorks key. Even if you don't necessarily want to join the CAD team or dedicate yourself to it, still having that SolidWorks key can be useful because you can still view parts, team parts in SolidWorks. You may not necessarily be creating them and making things for the build team to fabricate, but you can still view them, which is useful. You can't just take, let's say, the documents here.
Right. I gotta go, guys.
All right, bye, Matt.
Good night.
Good night. You can't just take this part and import it into Onshape. you'll have to export it as an STL file, which I will explain later when I go over imports and exports regarding different files for CAD. Essentially, all of that information, of course, you probably won't remember because it's not necessarily relevant to this presentation. All I'm trying to convey is that emailing Matt, slacking Matt your email will get you the SolidWorks key later. I'll go over, there will actually be an entire meeting dedicated to downloading SolidWorks because it's a long process. And you can join the CAD team if you want, or you can just have SolidWorks. It's very useful. So let's get back to what we were doing. Okay. So we have 2 parts now. We have the top looking thing, Beyblade, let it rip. Okay. And then this simple part. Okay. Let's go over simple sketches and stop talking about stereolithographic files. Okay. I'm going to select this face. And now I'm going to start sketching. So here, oh my, that's difficult to see. Hold on, I'm going to change the color. If you want to change colors in Onshape, it's very easy. You just go down to a body or a surface down here. You just go right click down to edit appearance, and you can do hexadecimal form, RGB. You can pretty much make any color with this. Yeah, there's a mixer here. Let's just make it gray. There we go. Very good. Okay, now let's go back to this part. I'm just going to right click, click edit, and now I'm back. See, easy. So I'm just going to define this on this thing's corners. Oh my. And I am now going to do this. Okay, watch closely. I am going to take a line going from here to here, and a line going from here to here. There is no midpoint line tool in Onshape, which is really inconvenient, but it's okay. This is a workaround to that. Of course, when we get SolidWorks, I'll go over more in SolidWorks instead of just Onshape. So I'm going to select this line, go to the Relations tab up here, click Midpoint. Now I'm going to select the origin of this sketch. Sometimes it will define an origin on a sketch plane instead of the actual origin of the part, which is nice, but sometimes it doesn't do it, which is not nice. I'm going to do this again. Notice how I still have this selected. Line, origin tab. Very good. Wrong one. Also wrong. I forget how to do a normal to face in Onshape. I don't actually know if you can. Oh yes, there we go, there we go. Okay, so to view normal to essentially just places your screen, quote unquote, parallel to the face, even though it's all just a bunch of LEDs or LCDs. So I'm going to right click this sketch and go down here to view normal to. So now I am parallel with this sketch, which is good. Now I'm not confused. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start defining these lines. I'm going to go up here, select the vertical tool. I'm going to click the 2 lines. Now they're vertical. See? That's good. Just in case I'm missing any relations, I'm now going to make them equal. Okay. Oops. Sorry, that's a habit. Okay, so now we have this. Now we're going to go back up to the trim tool, wherever that is. Here's the trim tool. So here, I'm actually going to select the split tool, and I'm going to split these two lines at 4 points, 2 points each. Why does it keep doing that? Okay. So now I'm going to just drag these points to be adjacent, coincident to the others. And it looks like it's not going to auto relate. So I'm just going to do it manually. Coincident is right here. Just going to select those. Very good. Sorry if I'm going too slow or too fast. I don't know how to gauge my speed for these kinds of things. So now, this is now construction geometry. And I'm actually going to make this construction geometry as well. Sometimes construction geometry is unnecessary, but that's okay. It can often be used as a visual tool for designing. Like for example, this here, I didn't have to do it. I probably could have done something else, but there are many ways to CAD. Okay, so I'm going to continue like this. I am going to make a vertical line that extends to here. You can't make a line? Going to do that differently then. Okay. All right. So now that I have that line here, it did not auto-relate. That's fine. I can select the vertical tool up here, which will make it parallel to some axis. I don't know, whichever one is relevant. This time it's Z. Okay. So here, I now have that line. Okay. Let's continue. I'm just going to make a bunch more lines. This time, I'm just going to choose the parallel tool. So here, I'm just going to make this parallel, these two parallel, and these two parallel. So now they should all be vertical. This vertical relation right here is driving the rest of them. These two is actually defined it as vertical instead. Now, I'm going to take these two, this line, and connect those 2 points. I'm going to go back to normal too. So notice how I can still edit this length. I don't want that. So I'm going to take the equal relation and make these equal. Notice how none of this is defined. Absolutely none of it. So I'm going to take this 2.5 millimeters and 2.5 millimeters. Oh, I did something. Oh, that's what I did not do. Okay. We're going to go to the equal relation again. This time we're going to click this and this. Why could it not solve that dimension then? Okay. You will experience many situations like this in CAD, where you'll get an error for no reason. And for some reason, I could define it on the bottom, but not the top, even though they're identical. I don't know. It's just how Onshape works sometimes. So now I actually have a contour here. Of course, it doesn't highlight it because it's on the face, but I'm going to click Extrude. Notice how it kind of looks like an I-beam. Not really. But this is just going to be 25 millimeters. Again, for boss extrudes, top left, extrude, solid body this time. We're going to add, instead of do new, notice how new, it just makes another part, which we don't want. Let's just click add. Okay. Now that we have added this, we can actually do something fun and interesting. Okay, so I am going to go, let's see, where is it? Plane, aha, okay. This is slightly unrelated, but it's also very important. So without being in a sketch, I'm just in the general menu. Notice how I'm not in a sketch. I can go up here to the plane feature. It is pretty much like, I don't know, next to the helix. Okay, so I have plane 1. Now I'm just going to click 2 entities and then try to define it as a midplane. Midplane. Okay. Just to go over that again, I clicked the plane tool, which you can also search here. I clicked this face and I clicked this face. Now I'm going to edit what type it is, and I'm going to click midplane. So I now have a plane in the middle of this part, which you'll see why that's useful in a second. Okay, so now we have our user-made plane. We can edit the size, of course. So now it's nice. Okay. Now we're going to use the mirror tool. So the mirror tool, it looks like whatever these two solid bodies are. So mirror tool is right under those two, the copy icon. Mirror. So now we're going to have entities to mirror. I'm going to click that and this. It actually did it correctly this time, since it's intersecting. So that's nice. So it's doing add. If I did new, watch what happens. I can hide, and it only hides the head. But if I do add, this is still one part, and it hides the whole thing. Okay, so we now have this strange looking object, and I just introduced you to the plane tool and the mirror tool. You don't have to experiment with these yet. I would recommend just sticking to sketching, focusing on sketch entities, dimensioning, and relations, especially the relations. These up here are very useful, and they're almost pretty much going to drive how you make a sketch, and therefore how you make models. So here, oh, nice. This time, it asked if I want to restore it, which is funny because on the other ones I deleted, I didn't have that option, and they actually had things on them. But we're not going to restore that because there was nothing on it, of course. Okay, so now we have this part. I don't care what you name this file. You don't even have to keep it. I don't know. Okay. Let's continue developing this part. Remember, this is just an experiment. I am just showing you what you can do and how to do it. The plane and mirror, you don't have to focus on sketching and extruding and cutting. And if you need to review those definitions, there's the PowerPoint that I will post later. So I'm going to continue developing this part. So here, I'm going to click the top plane. Notice how the top plane is actually the mid plane between this face and this face, which can sometimes be useful to identify. So here I have this part. Oh my. And I no longer actually need this mirror plane. So I'm going to hide it. Again, it's just the eye under the left tree. Feature tree also. it's just a hierarchy of features. It'll load this one first. This is priority, and then subsequent features, feature tree. Okay, so now that we have this, this looks very weird. You see, this is very thin. So let's make that thicker actually, but we're going to do something unique. Okay, so I'm going to take a line. I'm going to drag it all the way over there. I am then going to make these parallel. Then I'm going to take another line and make it perpendicular to that line. But I don't necessarily have to use the perpendicular relation. I can use others, but this works fine. So now I have this perpendicular line. I'm going to then click the midpoint tool. Notice how this sketch is not superimposed on this face, but I can still relate to it. I can still use it because it still defines that as a sort of piece of the sketch, if you will. So I click that line, I click that point. See, they're right there. They're not connected, but it still can relate. So I still have the midpoint tool selected. I'm going to click that. Now, for this next feature that I'm going to be going through, we don't actually need these to be solid. In fact, I don't want them to be solid. So I just made them construction geometry. And now we're going to take the Polygon tool, finally. So with our Polygon tool, we are going to have another hexagon, and we, oops, just like that. Oh yes, also you can define the number of sides it has just by double clicking on that. Like now it has 8 and it has 6. The drag feature is not good. I don't like it. Okay, so here now we have 2 hexagons. Now let's define these hexagons. So this line may be blue. We can define it with other sketch entities. So I'm going to take this line, I'm going to click on this line, holding Shift. Actually, hold on. You don't have to hold Shift. Okay. Let's make these. Is there a collinear option? Let's try that. Okay. Coincident. Coincident works. I picked the coincident relation, and this line is now collinear with this line. But I want these hexagons to be equal. So I'm going to tap on this circle and tap on this circle and hit equal. Almost pressed check there. Didn't want to do that. And I forgot to do one thing. This is because it's really not fun. So there's a point sketch entity. So here I'm going to click the point. I just put it coincident on this line. Since you can't select a midpoint on the line directly with your mouse for relations, I'm going to have to define it with an actual point. So I'm going to go up here, press midpoint, select the point, select the line, and now it's defined. Very good. Okay. Okay. So let's make, let's actually select, where is it? Oh, never mind. We can do this instead. Okay, so now we're going to select this line and make this coincident. And then we're going to select this point and this point and make it coincident. Now we have 2 defined contours, which is good. Now we're going to do something with them. What I'm about to introduce to you, Leo, is the offset tool. So I'm going to take the offset tool. It looks like a boot. I don't know why it looks like a boot. It's right here under copies next to the trim tool. So here I'm going to click offset. and I'm going to click this here. And then I'm going to click all the points, sorry, all the lines that I want to offset. And then once I'm done, you'll see what this does in a second. So enter, and now I can offset it. 2.5 millimeters. Okay. So what just happened is I defined an offset of these sketch entities. Essentially, this point, this line, and this line are the same distance apart from each other as this line and this line. That's just what the offset tool does. That's all. But I want to flip directions. So I'll do it again. Oh, this is so fun. Okay. Offset tool. Clicking the lines. And then there's this arrow. It pops up unpredictably in unpredictable places. This right here, this little arrow defines the direction in which the offset is being conducted in. So I'm just going to click that. And now I can flip the direction. Ooh, flip the direction. Okay, enter, and I'll define this as 2.5 millimeters. Okay, that's the offset tool. Now we're going to do it on the other side. And I realize that we're over time, but if you want to stay, you can, just to see how this part is going to be done. So here, offset tool, flip direction, enter, 2.5 millimeters. Okay, so now we have two contours. Technically, we have 4, but I'm considering it just 2 because those are the only 2 that we're going to be using, and those are irrelevant. Okay, top again. So let's just save that sketch, right-click the sketch, go back to edit. Now we're going to go to extrude. We now have the option to extrude these contours. At this time, it auto-selected it, but if I wanted to, I could just select this part, but I don't want to do that. So now that we have our extrude tool, extrude feature, I'm going to, instead of doing blind, which is just going to put it out 25 millimeters, let's say I forgot this dimension, or I just want it to be dependent on the height of this part. So up to face, I'm going to choose this face. So there we go. I chose that face. Second end position. This is just the same contours, but in the opposite direction of the one that you chose. So let me repeat that. So we have extrude. We have a solid for now. Add. I picked those 2 contours. They'll pick it automatically, however, often. Instead of doing blind, I did up to face and selected this face so that they'll end at that face. Now I'm going to click this checkbox that says second end position. It'll allow it to go in the other direction. And of course, I'm going to also have this up to face. So now, if we hit check mark, we now have a single part that looks like this. And that is the end of today's meeting. Do you have any questions, Leo?
No, thank you though. This is really informative.
All right, thank you. All right.
Nice work.
Thank you, Scott.
See you next week.
See you.
Yep, bye.